Your next tape of the Joe Verde training program, How to Close More Sales. This program was designed by Joe to help you close more sales, overcome your customers' objections, stay off price on the lot, and hold gross. There is also homework and a quick quiz for you to fill out at the completion of each tape in this series. And now, let's begin. Here's Joe.
Okay, you guys ready again? If we do a quick backtrack of what we talked about you building more value on the lot to make it easier to close sales. We talked about tracking your progress. Remember, we tracked your opportunities, your activities, your results. We did that so we could set goals. And then we talked about developing some skills, especially our communication skills, especially the skills that relate to closing and objections. We talked about, briefly touched on some of the common questions we get on closing. What I want to do next is clear up the air on objections. And I think objections overall are the most misunderstood part of selling. We mishandle them out here on the lot. We don't understand what they are. We try to close sales, but we don't know how to handle them, so we miss the sale that we tried so hard to close. We gave a good presentation, good demonstration, we closed, they said no, we didn't know what to do next. We work on the wrong objection almost every time. So in this section, we want to cover some common questions and answers on objections, and I also want to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes we make handling these objections. First of all, on page 31 in your workbook, page 31, there's 3 things that sound like objections. 3 things that sound like objections. Now, I don't want you to just think of something off the cuff here. If a customer came on the lot to buy, remember 78% of the people said they came on, they're going to get a car, 85% said they walked on the lot to buy. Now again, how hard should it be to sell somebody something who came to get it? But another point I want to make, if I come to buy, how many objections do I come in with? Oh, Betty, let's go buy a car, but let's don't. Because I wouldn't come in with many objections. I'd have some concerns, I'd have some questions, I'd have some reflex responses, but if I'm going to buy, I really won't have hardly any objections. I may be going to check down the street. That might be a condition. I need to go shop first, or I may tell you that I need to. But as far as real buying objections, I'm there to buy, not there to object to buying. I think it confuses us when we talk about the 3 things that sound like objections. The first thing, and let's get out of the car business for a minute, and let's go down to the stereo store. Let you and I go pretend we're going to go buy an expensive stereo. We don't know nothing about stereos to speak of. We know that they play music. We know there's bass and treble. We just have the basic understanding of stereos. We've always had one. But we want to upgrade now. We go down to the stereo store, and they got stereos on the wall from somewhere around $4,000 or $5,000 up to $35,000. Now, because stereos are so expensive, let's say that they take trades, and we've got our trade in here under our arm. We're going to walk in with our trade. We're going to make payments because they're so expensive. What would be some common questions that we had asked when we got down to the stereo store? We're looking at a stereo, and let's say that we had decided to spend somewhere around $10,000 for a stereo. We gathered around the kitchen table, figured our listening wants and needs, figured our budget, and we said, you know, honey, I think we can afford 10 grand. So we go down to the stereo store. We're looking around at stereos. They're priced, but we don't understand the pricing. They've got the regular price, and then they have the adjusted market value on the stereos, so we're really not sure what it is. And we're looking at stereos, and we finally pick out a stereo, and we say, I kind of like that one. What would be our next question? How much is it? Common question. You could expect that if you were selling stereos. Now, let's say that stereo I picked out, I'm thinking it's going to be around 10 grand, and the salesman says, I say, how much is that one? He said, that's 14,000. Tell me about the normal human response when you were expecting something and the price is 40% higher than you thought it was going to be. How much is that? Well, it's about 14. Whoa. You can hear it in tone and inflection. You can see it in body language. If you'll start watching your customers, when it's more than they thought, they back up. They go, whoa, what are you, crazy? Well, that's a lot for that thing. And then they throw out what sounds like an objection. It's called a reflex response. Doesn't mean anything. Now, remember, I got my trade in my hand. They take trades. What's going to be another common question I'm going to ask the stereo salesperson? What do you give me for my trade? I got to make payments. What's going to be another common question I'm going to ask? What are my payments going to run? Maybe I've seen special interest rates, rebates. I may ask about the rebates. I may ask about the interest rates. How much is it? What kind of discount can I get? What are you going to give me for my trade? What are my payments going to run? What kind of interest rates you guys got? Common questions. Not objections, common questions. Number 1 on page 31. 3 things we have to deal with. A, the concerns everybody has. The concerns all of your customers have. Those price questions, those are just price concerns. And if they don't hear the right number, you can expect a reflex response. Whoa, that's 14 grand. Whoa, boy, is that a lot of money. Gosh, that's more than we meant to spend. You guys want way too much. We're going to shop the competition. All those other objections, almost all of them are reflex objections, just start coming out because we're concerned. Now, there's some things people are concerned about. Do I really need the features? Is this the right product? Is this the right place? Can I afford it? Is the price okay? They didn't say, was the price too high? They said, was the price okay for what I get in return? And when should I buy, now or later? And almost all price questions you get are just reflex responses. They're just concerns. B, we also have other conditions that affect the sale. Now, a condition is something like a customer comes in and says, I don't have a job. I don't have any money. I don't have any credit. Those are conditions. Some other conditions that affect the sale. Waiting for an insurance settlement. That's something that's out of your control. A condition is something that you can't do anything about. Pending job loss or transfer, owe more than their trade's worth, you can't change that. One thing I'd suggest you do with conditions, though, have you ever sold somebody a car and had no money? Of course you did. You found somebody with money. You ever sold a car to somebody who had no job, no credit, or even bad credit? Of course you did. You found a way around that condition. Waiting for an insurance settlement. You've found ways to speed up the process. The insurance company's not going to give them a check for 30 days. You found ways to go ahead and get them to do something today, take the car home, and you found a way to handle that condition. I don't have my trade with me is another condition. I don't have my wife, my husband, my spouse with me. I don't have the other decision maker with me. That would be a condition. Always treat conditions as objections and try to close on them. Now, there's one down here that we see a lot, especially in today's market. Pending job loss or transfer, or base closings, things like that. If you've got people on the lot that say, gosh, let's say they've got a car out here, a 2- or 3-year-old car, they're making payments on it now. They come on the lot and they show a genuine interest in your car, you present it and you demonstrate it and you tried to close, and they say, well, I'm afraid to do anything right now. I like the car and I want the car and I need the car, but I may lose my job next week, or they may close the base next week. Pretty common objection in today's market. When we talk about closing, if I'm going to lose my job next week, is the bank more likely to loan me money today or next week? I don't think banks loan money normally to people who don't have a job. So if I was really serious about getting a car, wouldn't I need to do it now? Wouldn't that be that fear of loss or sense of urgency we'd need to create? Bob, if you're concerned about losing your job, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're already making payments on the car you're driving, aren't you? Well, yeah. And you said that this car would better suit your needs, didn't you? Well, yeah. And payments are going to be give or take. This may be a little bit more, but not too much. And it sounds like either way you're going to make a payment, am I right? Well, yeah. Bob, tell me, how does the bank look at loaning money? If you have a job, are they more likely to loan you money than if you don't have one? Well, yeah, you're probably right on that. So, Bob, when would be the best time to try to trade? Remember, you got a payment either way, today or next week. Well, I never thought of that. Maybe I should. If you got somebody about to lose their job, that's the best reason to get the car today. Not a reason to hold off. But too many of us have been taught to say, well, here's my card. If you don't lose your job, come on back. And we dismiss them. Treat the condition as an objection and try to overcome it. Bottom of the page. There are objections to buying. There are objections to buying. I don't know if you've ever thought about this or counted up the objections we get. Most of us spend an entire career with about 7 objections to buying. I want to think it over, sleep on it, pray about it, talk it over. That's the I want to think it over objection in the versions of that one. There's the it's too much money or it's more than I can afford objection. There's the I can get it somewhere else for less, or I saw an ad in the paper. I need to shop the competition. I'm driving a Ford, want to look at Fords, want to look at Chevys, want to look at Mazdas. I want to check with a friend, wife, mechanic, somebody else that I feel comfortable with helping me make the decision. It's the wrong color, equipment, or model, or I can't buy, have other obligations, kids, school, mother-in-law moved in. We don't get many more objections than that. And I guess the crazy part is we go through an entire career with only 7 objections and we never learn how to handle them. Wouldn't it make sense to learn how to handle these things? Wouldn't it make sense to learn some conditioned responses, some things we could respond with when we get an objection so that we can immediately start to overcome it and close the sale? When we talk about objections, we need to learn some better methods. We should be able to take almost all of those objections, narrow them down to 2 or 3 specific objections that we can overcome. I can take those 7, and we'll talk about how to do it later, and turn them into just 3 different objections. Let's look at some of the reasons that people object to buying on page 32. We get objections. Let's see if we can figure out what causes them. Top of the page on page 32, number 2. There's generally 4 reasons people object. 4 reasons they object. Number 1, They don't understand. Even if you get a serious price objection, you've gone all the way through your presentation, demonstration, and here the customer says, Joe, that's way too much money. I just don't feel that the car is worth it. Then they don't understand the value. That's what they don't understand. So we need to go back and recreate some value. We need to go back when you get a serious price objection, and not just I can buy it down the street for less. I'm talking about the one that says, gosh, I just, that's more money than I think the car's worth. Then that means we've left out the value. They could not understand because you use too much trade slang. There's a lot of things we do to create objections. And A, they don't understand. B, they don't believe you. You covered things. You didn't make them like you, know you, and trust you. You said, trust me truthfully, and if I can be honest a few times, and now they don't trust you. So now they don't believe you. So now they object because I don't believe what you've told me. C, they'll object to cover up. C, they'll object to cover up. A lot of people use an objection as an excuse. In fact, most of the objections you get are a reflex type objection, which they've used as an excuse to leave. I'll think it over and get back to you. I want to check with somebody before I do anything. It's too much money. Those three objections are your most common excuses for leaving the dealership. Think it over and get back to you. It's too much money. I want to check with somebody else. We have to learn to work through those reflex objections. And D, you'll often get objections to slow things down. And maybe a good example of that, D, to slow things down. You've been with little Bobby and little Betty out here, and they're all excited about getting a car. It's one of their first cars, big decision. Mom and Dad said, go out and make your own decisions. Just got married, picking out a car for them. And they go through this whole thing, and everything's going along fine. You're going through, you're progressing right through the sale. Everything's hunky-dory. You ask for the order, and you say, well, it sounds like we found a perfect car, Bobby. Have you noticed how sometimes when everything's been going too smooth, all of a sudden they back up and throw an objection at you? Everything's been going along fine. We say, Bobby, sounds like found a perfect car. You're going to put it in your name or Betty's name? And he says, no, wait a minute. Hold off here a second. And he looks around for an objection. Hold off a second. I don't know if I like those Goodyear Eagle GTs on this thing. Now, you and I have been taught to just quickly jump on that objection. Oh, no problem, we can switch tires. Have you noticed when you handle the objection that quick and say, oh, no problem, we can switch tires? They jump up with another objection. Well, now, wait a minute. I don't know for sure if I want blue. Oh, no problem. We got a white one over here with the Firestones already on it. Well, now, we're just going a little fast. I think we better hold off a little bit. If you keep firing rapid fire those methods to handle objections, if you keep doing them too quick, you'll create objections you can't get rid of. Listen, when everything's been going along fine and all of a sudden you start getting objections as you start leading to the close, it's probably because they're getting nervous, probably because things are moving too fast. Remember, biggest or second biggest decision these people ever make. Number 3, there's also 2 types of objections. 2 types of objections. Number 3, there's the ones that are real and there's the ones that are false. We'd call them reflex and sincere. A reflex objection is just something people say. We're just looking. Reflex objection. We're not buying today. We just came to pick up a brochure. Reflex objection. Whoa, that's too much money. Reflex objection. I'm going to shop the competition. Reflex objection, probably. I need to go get a friend. Probably a reflex objection. Sincere objections. The sincere objections are the ones like this. Whoa, that's too much money, and they really mean it. That means we lacked building value. Sincere objections would be based on that trust we talked about. They may not believe you. Number 4, when we talk about reflex objections, and if I were going to throw out a number, I would say that 80 to 90% of all the objections you get are a reflex type of objections. Number 4, reflex objections are also sometimes called conditioned responses. Conditioned responses. Just like the conditioned response. Thank you. You're welcome. Congratulations. Thank you. How can I help you? Conditioned response is what? How can I help you? We're just looking. So if you enjoy reflex objections and you like to start your sale off on a negative, say, how can I help you folks? Or how may I be of service? Or what can we do to help you? Or how may I help you? Any of those help questions is going to get you the conditioned response. We're just looking most of the time. Now, some common reflex objections. We're just looking, got a few minutes, just want a brochure, prices are high. We'll think about it and get back to you, and almost all of your price concerns. Now, you can easily handle a reflex objection. Remember before we were talking about walking through the forest, got that little branch out there? With these reflex objections, you just need to get around them. You don't have to overcome it. You just need to move it aside. Number 5, handling these reflex objections so that we can move them aside. If you mishandle this objection, It's like planting a tree in front of you down the path, one that you may not get around. It's like building a brick wall. Some dumb stuff I was taught when I first started selling cars. People came on the lot and said, we're just looking. I was taught to say dumb stuff like, well, you must be looking for cars. We don't sell groceries. Now, we know that doesn't work. You'd be crazy to use that. When you attack a reflex objection, when you go for the throat and try to handle it, you'll create more resistance instead of lowering the resistance. So don't fight the objection. What you want to do is just the exact opposite. You want to disarm the objection as quickly as you can. When they say, we're just looking, what could we say to disarm the objection? Would we say something positive or negative if we wanted to disarm it? Negative causes resistance, so that one's out. So we want to say something positive. We're just looking. How about great? We're just looking. Great. And then remember we were talking about questions? The person asking the questions controls the conversation. Remember, people can only think of one thing at a time. Remember, if I supply the answers, they'll pick one of them. We're just looking. Great. Who's the lucky one? Who gets the new car? You or somebody else? That's going to be for me. How are you going to use it? Business or pleasure? Well, I'm going to use it for business. And let's say they throw another reflex objection. But by golly, if I don't get enough of my trade, I'm not buying it. Well, heck, Bob, I wouldn't expect you to. Speaking of your trade, were you looking for another two-door, four-door station wagon? And let's learn to work around the reflex objections. We don't have to drop everything we're doing, pull out a business card and dismiss these folks. We do have to learn to handle them properly. Some key words here. Any positive word, great. On the blanks on number 5, write these down, great. We're just looking, great. We just want to pick up a brochure, great. Or you could say fine, or you could say sure, or no problem, I understand, okay, almost anything positive. And the most important thing is that has to be the first word out of your mouth, a positive response. We're just looking, great. We're just looking, fine. We just want to stop by and pick up a brochure, no problem. Now that would be the first thing, and then you have to continue with questions. We're just here to get a brochure, no problem. Maybe I can answer a couple questions while you guys are here and grab your brochure. By the way, who's the lucky one? Who gets the car when you get a little closer, you or somebody else? And we lead back around with questions. We control the conversation with questions. When we supply the answers, we really get control. Number 6, when we talk about sincere objections, I said 80 to 90% are reflex objections. When we talk about a sincere objection like price, or a sincere objection like I've got to think it over, most of those were created by the salesperson. If it's a sincere, whoa, I've got information overload, I got to go home and sort this out, we created that problem. Now part of that comes from telling everybody everything you know. You have to use selective information. I don't tell you everything I know about the car. I investigate to find your buying motives, your hot buttons, I build rapport, we make friends, and I find out what's most important to you, and I only tell you what I know about those most important things. I don't bore you with facts and figures about other stuff. It's kind of like leasing. A lot of you guys would lease cars if you'd use simple talk. But now you got to tell everybody everything you ever heard about a lease. I used to use a real simple script on leasing when I was out on the lot. It's not what you heard when you went to the leasing class. I grew up on a farm, and I always liked fishing. I'd go out on the lot, and in my investigation, I ask a lot of questions. And I just said, Bob, you guys going to lease or purchase? Now, most people respond to that with, gosh, I'd never lease, I'm going to purchase, or no, we're going to buy it. I responded with, gee, that's too bad. I'm going fishing here for a lease. I said, gee, that's too bad. You know, with all the changes in leasing the last few years, benefits almost everybody, not just business anymore. And then I'd go on with another question, change the conversation. By the way, were you looking for a 5-speed or an automatic? Now, if that worked and my fishing expedition worked, I got this little mental tug, and they said, well, what do you mean, changes in leasing? Well, you know, the old leases used to just benefit business. It was a write-off. The new leases benefit almost everybody. And we'll get back to that later. Tell me, we're looking for a 2-door, 4-door station wagon. Well, wait a minute. Tell me more about a lease. Well, Bob, there used to be 2 kinds, the good kind and the bad kind, and most people didn't want the bad kind, so we got rid of that one. And about all we got left now is the good kind. And if you're interested, we'll get back to that later. First, let's make sure you like the car. Betty, who wants to drive first, you or Bob? And change the subject again. Now, I never talked about leasing again until we got inside. And then I'd have my manager write this thing up 2 ways, pencil me back, and I used a basic Ben Franklin close, and I'd go in and present this thing to Bob, who had shown an interest in leasing. I'd come back in with my first offer from management, and I'd say, Bob, I had my manager figure this 2 ways. And my first offer was always at sticker price plus, no matter what story I told my manager. Say, Bob, I had him figure this 2 ways. One with a lot down for a long time with real high payments, and then I had him figure it with less down for a shorter term with smaller payments. Tell me which is best for you. Now, practically everybody says, well, Joe, of course, this side. But that's that lease thing you're talking about. What's the catch? Then I need to isolate that. Bob, what if there was no catch? Which is best for you? Well, sure, if there's no catch, I'd rather do the lease. But I heard. And then they give you your 3 or 4 objections to leasing. Too many of us go into this story about leasing. We try to tell them everything we ever heard about a lease. Open in, closed in, all this stuff. Don't worry, the objections will come out. So it's the same thing with, I used to have this friend we worked with, and he knew everything about everything. He'd bore people to death with how fuel injection worked. All they wanted was economy. They'd say, what's that? And he said, well, that's fuel injection. He'd explain screw sizes, torque pressure. He'd explain spring pressure, everything in there about fuel injection. They'd go home confused. Our job is not to confuse people. In fact, when we talk about product knowledge or knowledge that we need to share, I was listening to a speaker not too long ago, and he said, the only thing you need to know about product knowledge is just enough to get people excited about owning your product. Don't tell them everything you know. Tell them the part that interests them and gets their enthusiasm and excitement going. They're not going to make a decision based on a lease on everything you know, just on how excited they get about it. Number 7, even though we don't want one, and I'd suggest we don't solicit these, but even though we don't want one, a strong objection is a good buying sign. A strong objection is not bad luck. That's good luck. If I didn't want to buy, I wouldn't object. I'd just say, see, I'm not interested. But if I stand there and say, whoa, I like it, but I have this objection, that's good luck. And again, we don't want to solicit it, but if you get one, it's okay. There's number 8 on the next page. There's 4 times to handle these objections. And again, the rest of this workshop on video is all about closing and objections. We're going to get into script after script after script on what to do and what to say. Remember, we're just answering common questions. Number 8, there's 4 times to handle objections. A, sometimes you want to handle an objection before it even comes up. 8A, you want to handle some objections before they even come up. Let's say you're selling a Highline product. Let's say you're selling Lexus, Mercedes, something that costs more than the average car. Let's say you're selling this $40,000 Lexus, $50,000 Lexus. Customer comes on the lot, been driving Chevys and Fords, used to spending $25,000, maybe $30,000 for a really nice car. And they come on the lot, sticker shock is common. They walk over and look at the sticker and they go, whoa, a lot of money. If that's common, and if a person walked on the lot and said, I've been driving Fords, I wanted to take a look at a Lexus. Why not start your presentation off on something like, Bob, that's great. You know, most people don't understand or don't see how affordable a Lexus really can be. Let me show you some of the features on the new whatever it is. So some you might handle before. B, the typical way to handle these is when they come up. You get an objection, you handle it. Now when I say handle it, there's one of 5 things you're going to do with this objection, and we'll get into those in the next set. When we handle these, we have to either get around it or we have to take care of it. And normally you'll do it when they come up. C, you also want to bypass some objections till later. Bypass objections till later. When people walk on the lot and they bring up price before they find a car they're willing to take home, should we talk about price yet? Of course not. In fact, the longer we can stay off price, the further we can move into this buying process. Won't we get more for the car because we'll have built more value? So I don't want to talk about price out here just because they bring it up. I also don't want to talk about color or equipment objections out here. People walk on the lot and say, I'm looking for a white car, do you have one? If I talk about the objection now, if I get into this hum-haw about white cars, we don't have one. They say, I'm looking for a white Mustang convertible, do you have one? No, but I can get you one. That's killing you. It's causing you to do you just enjoy dealer trades or what? We need to learn a better script. That's the script that costs you sales. We need to learn some scripts that keep that from happening. We have to learn to bypass price. We have to learn to bypass color and equipment objections out here on the lot so that we can get to the point where we can ask for the order to go inside. And we'll talk about how to bypass objections. D, never. Some objections just don't matter. Guy comes on the lot and he says, you're talking to him, you've been with him a while, and he says, Joe, how do I notice a good car? Bob, you wouldn't be standing here if you didn't know it was good. In fact, let me show you some of the improvements we made last year. You just overcome all objections to your satisfaction and move on. You don't go through and say, Bob, you wouldn't be standing here if you didn't know it was a good car. Now, are we agreed on that? You You don't ask for an agreement on every objection, and I've read in some books that you do. I'd completely disagree with that. I handle the objection to my satisfaction, and then I move on. If it's still there, it'll come back up later, don't worry. So some objections you just never need to handle. One thing at the bottom of the page there on page 33, it says, learn how to turn every objection into an opportunity to close the sale. And if you can learn to do that, you'll get rich. Every objection is a chance to move to another close. Every time they object about something, I've got an opportunity to use one of these 5 techniques that leads me to the sale, that leads me to an opportunity to close again. Selling and overcoming objections and closing is a lot like playing checkers or chess. It's not a game, but every move you make needs to be deliberate. Just like in checkers, you want to get from here to there, where you figure, I do this, I do this, I do this, and I get over there. Selling's the same way. We know that we need to end up in the finance office. If we say and do the right things step by step by step, then we can control that process. Let's finish up here with the 5 biggest mistakes that we make handling objections on page 34. 5 biggest mistakes on handling objections. Number 1, we create buying objections by skipping most of the steps of selling. We create buying objections by skipping most of the steps of selling. Again, we don't spend near enough time out here building value. If you remember, 85% of our customers said we didn't build rapport and we didn't investigate. 88% of our customers said they got a lousy presentation and a lousy demonstration. Those are minus numbers. That's bad luck. We've skipped these steps and wonder why it's hard to close the sale later. If they don't see the value in owning it, good luck selling it to them. Number 2, most salespeople don't know how to bypass questions and objections they don't want to talk about, especially these color and equipment and price objections. So they get bogged down in their presentation trying to handle an objection. And what they do is create problems that you can't overcome. You get bogged down in a price conversation over here, you'll never get to the basics. You'll never get to follow these steps. And if you start talking price on the lot, no matter whether you have one price card or whether you negotiate on every sale, if you talk price on the lot, you're going to make it much harder to negotiate inside, to finalize the sale inside. The negotiation starts as soon as the first dollar figure hits the air out here. And I may be the only trainer in the car business that says don't talk price on the lot, period. I don't want to know what you want for your car. I don't care. I don't want to know what you want to make in payments. I don't care how much you want to spend. What I do want to know is I want to know your buying motives. I want to know everything you're going to do with this car. I want to know who's going to be driving it. I want to know everything about you, your family. I want to build rapport. I want to investigate so that I can put you on what sounds like the right car for you. Bob, sounds to me like we found a perfect car. How do you want it registered? Joe, it's a lot of money. Well, Bob, sounds like you just want to make sure it fits your budget. Am I right? Well, yeah, but it sounds like a lot. If we can work this out, fit it in your budget, is there any other reason you wouldn't take it today? No. So I can handle the objections. Now, some people in class say, yeah, but, wait a minute. If you don't talk price on the lot, you're going to put some people on too much car. That's true, I will. But not very many if I'm listening carefully, if I'm watching body language, tone and inflection, if I'm focused on the customer. Well, wait a minute. You're going to write some people up who are stuck in their trade. Yeah, I will, but I don't have any way of knowing that ahead of time unless I ask. And if I say, what do you want for your trade? People have the lowest figure they'd take, the next figure they'd like to have. They'd like to get this much, and if they really had their druthers, they'd like to have this one. Out on the lot, when you say, what do you want for your trade? Which figure do they give you? Not this one, not this one, not this one. They say, whoa, Betty, we may have an idiot here. Let's give him this one. And they take more than they imagined for it just in case. So I don't want to start the negotiation up here and have to work these people back down. I would rather wait till I get inside, talk about the trade later. It's true, I do risk them owing more than their car's worth. The problem with that one is, if you're out on the lot and you find out somebody owes $4,000 more than their car's worth in your general conversation out here, you don't present, you don't demonstrate, you just get bogged down in this $4,000 minus equity. When you try to get $4,000 out of people up front, say, whoa, Bob, you're stuck $4,000. You're going to have to come up with that, and then we're going to need a down payment. Since they're not excited about the car, are they as likely to give you the $4,000 plus the down payment as they would be if you followed the basic steps of selling, built value, got them excited about owning it, and then inside said, whoa, you know, Bob, on this car, we need about $9,000 down. I said, well, I can't come up with $9,000. Why do you need $9,000? Well, there's a little minus equity in your car, and the bank likes to see a good down payment. So how much of that 9 can you come up with? What, 8,800, 8,900? Oh, I can't give you but $6,000. Well, Bob, we'll see what we can do. Now we got my $2,000 down payment. We've covered the minus equity. In there, you may get it. Out here on the lot, good luck. I may also write some people with bad credit because I don't say, Bob, how's your credit? But I think the point that we have to understand is if I don't pre-qualify anybody on the lot, will I write more people? If I don't guess at trade values, payments, or anything else, will I put more people on paper? Of course. If I put more people on paper, even though some are stuck in their trade, even though some want more than their trade's worth, even so some got bad credit, even though some I might be on too much car, since I put more people on paper, even though all those things are possible, will I sell more cars? Absolutely. And again, I'm willing to play the odds. I'm willing to play the odds. If I do my job every time, I'll come out ahead. We've been taught to play guess who the buyers are, and that one's killing you. Number 3, those reflex objections we talk about, the average salesperson attacks those reflex objections. We're just looking. And then instead of saying great, we attack it. We try to close on it. Well, Bob, but if we found a car you like and worked it out the way you want to buy it, could we sell it to you? No, like I said, we're just looking. Well, we got some great rebates. No, like I said, we're just looking, just kicking tires. Why don't you hand me your card and I'll wander around a little bit and I'll leave soon because I'm tired of you asking me these questions. We got to quit doing that. Number 4, one of the biggest mistakes, and it's the thing we're taught in this industry, almost all of our advertising is on price. Almost all of our closing is done on price. Our negotiations obviously on price. But we think price is the method to handle every objection. Price is the worst method to handle 95% of the objections. We go straight to price, and we hope that that's going to be the thing that solves all of our problems. Price is the least effective way to handle an objection. We'll show you some much better ways. Number 5, one of the biggest reasons, and one of the reasons we end up on price, is we focus on the wrong objection. To give you an example, focus on the wrong objection. The customer says, you're trying to close a sale. The customer says, I'll think it over and get back to you. So he says, I'm going to think about it. What do we normally do? We start throwing incentives at them. Bob, what if we saved you $1,000? Could we go ahead and earn your business today? Or if I could throw in a bed liner and an air conditioner for that pickup truck, would you buy it now? We start using price. Let's take this objection down one. We know that I'll think it over is just a reflex question, a reflex response, a reflex objection. So let me clarify that a little bit. Bob, when you say you're going to think it over, there must be something holding you back. If you don't mind me asking, what's that? I could even supply the answers to that question. If you don't mind me asking, what's that? Is it color, equipment, is something I said, or is it the price? He says, no, Joe, that's a lot of money. That's just a lot of money for a car. So is that the real objection? Most of us think it is, so now we start dropping the price. Well, Bob, if I can save enough money, would you buy it? Let's see if we can take this down another objection. Bob, when you say a lot of money, and remember that most people are making payments, not paying cash. Bob, when you say a lot of money, you're talking about the actual price or the payments that you got to take out of your pocket each month? He said, well, no, it's the payments. Let's don't stop there. Let's take it down another one. Bob, sounds to me like when you say payments, sounds like you're on a budget and just want to make sure the car fits your budget. Am I right? Oh, yeah. Bob, assuming it fits your budget, would there be any other reason we couldn't send you home in it now? Well, no, Joe. If you can figure out how to work this thing in my budget, I'll take it. Would you handle this objection differently than you handle this, or this? In almost all of these, you'd think price would be the way to go. Now, what can we do with this one without dropping the price? I could extend the terms. I could make the payments lower. I could get more down payment. I could switch him to a lease. I can get him a better rate. I suppose if he's got 3 Visas and MasterCards there and one's got a $5,000 limit and he's making little payments on all of them, I could combine that, find another $50. I guess I could use a gas savings clause, save him another $15 a month in gas. If he's been spending $100 a month on maintenance, I guess I could show him how we're going to save that being in this new car. This is an easy objection to handle. These are tough objections. And we use the wrong method to overcome almost every objection. We focus on the wrong objections. We not only focus on the wrong objections, we present the wrong car about 30% of the time because we didn't investigate. We don't investigate, we present the wrong car, we focus on the wrong objections. Sometimes I'm amazed that we manage to pull out the 8, the 10, the 12 cars. Any questions? And don't ask me, I'm not there. Ask the guy next to you. Seriously now, there's a lot of information that we've covered. I know that a lot of the information that we covered generates another question. I'm going to answer all of your questions. We're going to, in the next section, now that we understand some basics of closing and some basics of objections, now that we've kind of cleared the air on the biggest mistakes in each one, next thing I want to do is come back and talk to you about the 5 most effective types of questions you can ask in selling. And then after that one, we'll talk about the 5 methods to handle objections. And I can't stress enough, if you can get the 5 questions down and the 5 methods down, this was one of the methods on handling objections. It's very easy to go from I'll think it over down to budget. We need to learn to do that same thing with almost every objection. You get the 5 questions, the 5 methods, you got it made. Go ahead and review the tape, ask any questions that you have, write them down. I'll answer them on the next few tapes. I'll see you later.
This concludes this segment of your training program. As Joe says, the key to your success in learning to close more sales and hold gross is to practice, drill, and rehearse the techniques he's giving you in this training series. And don't forget, be sure to complete the homework assignment for this tape before you go on to the next tape. Good luck on the quiz, too, and we'll see you in the next tape.